Good evening, everyone. Hi there. I think we're going to start now. My name is Marie Graff. I'm the Director of Marketing here at the Museum of Natural History, and I want to welcome you to our house. We are delighted to host this meeting tonight. Just want to give a little plug for the museum if you haven't been here in a while. This is our Summer of Sustainability. We've got a climate change exhibit that will be with us through the end of the year, and the exhibit is about the science of climate change, why we know that climate change is happening around the globe. The positive message that we're sending with this exhibit is that we built this lovely house. If you saw it on the outside on our property out here, we call it PNC Smart Home Cleveland. It is the most energy efficient home you will ever see. It uses 90% less energy than a typical home does. And it's a very simple process in building this house. We will show you how it was built and the things that you can do in your own house to save yourself money in the future. And then we've got this lovely exhibit outside called Little Builders. So if you have little ones, children, grandchildren, we encourage you to come back because that exhibit is going to occupy them for hours. You will keep them busy. We have a couple of special days on our schedule that we have reduced admission. Target has sponsored our first Thursday afternoons of every single month. We have free admission. We'd love to have you come back and bring your family and enjoy the museum for the day. Wait Oval Wednesdays, I'm going to make a plug for our UCI programs. We have reduced admission on those nights as well. And PNC Smart Home is open for open house, only $5. That's all you have to pay to tour the house. We encourage you to come and enjoy all the institutions in the circle. We try to serve the community as best we can. I'm going to turn this over to Chris Ronayne. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie, and good evening, everybody. I told County Exec Fitzgerald it's just like the old school days. Nobody wants to sit right in the front row except the staff that needs to, right? But we can see you out there. And welcome back to University Circle, to County Exec Fitzgerald, who's going to be up here in a minute, and to County Councilwoman Yvonne Conwell. Thank you for choosing University Circle as your host area in this very large district of District 7 tonight. I am Chris Ronayne, President of University Circle Incorporated. And I want to say a few things about University Circle and then get off the stage and leave the stage to the county exec. But first and foremost, I think County Exec Fitzgerald and our county councilwoman know very well what's happening here in University Circle. We are the second largest employment center in the city of Cleveland, but the fastest growing in Northeast Ohio. The numbers are stunning. We, in the worst of all economies that we've known, we still grew 1,000 jobs a year over the last 5 years. Good news is we expect, by the way of the numbers of our institutions, to continue to grow about at that clip of 1,000 new jobs every year for the next 5 years. So that's a good news story, and thankfully it's been accelerated by the growth of our hospitals, the relocation of one up the street of the VA, but certainly University Hospitals and the Cleveland Clinic. And with that, the numbers continue to, we hope, impress people. The overall construction in this area has reached $3 billion. There's a lot of legitimate talk about the downtown and what's going on with the Medical Mart and our new casino and some of the other projects that are happening down there. But uptown, similarly, there's $3 billion in overall construction happening here. So it's good for the hard hats. I say to these museums, you keep our construction workers working day in and day out. The overall economic output of this area, just for your edification, since we're in University Circle tonight, we generate just for Cuyahoga County from this area, from the income tax earned here, $14 billion in overall output to the area. We represent now in indirect and direct payroll 12.2% of the county's jobs. In direct payroll, it's about 5.5%, and that's just from this tiny square mile and a half of University Circle. With it, there's some other good news. With jobs comes people. We've grown in, again, a difficult decennial census for our city, where our city lost 17% of our population. The upswing out in University Circle was 11%. We welcome immigrants because they've been the lifeblood of new growth. While the city is about 4.5% of foreign-born, we're about twice that here in University Circle. So it's a little bit of a global village in University Circle. I'd be remiss, as you look around the room, of the partners from other neighborhoods around here, if I didn't say we're growing an even greater University Circle with our partner neighbors. These jobs mean nothing if they don't mean jobs for our area residents. So working steadfastly on supply chain inclusion strategies to bring local residents into the supply chain of this growth. We're working on a number of other programs to incentivize people to live in and around Greater University Circle because they work here. That helps rebuild a city for Mayor Jackson and a county for County Exec Ed Fitzgerald. So we're proud of what's going on here. I'm going to get off the stage, but I'm going to give one more program note, and that is, many of you know, we run a concert series right outside these doors every Wednesday night. It's called Wait Oval Wednesdays. It's a great Northeast Ohio affair. People come from all over the multi-counties, not to mention Cuyahoga County, and certainly here in the city of Cleveland. Every Wednesday, we've got 4 more shows. We put on a good show. Next Wednesday, August 3rd, can you believe it's August? Carlos Jones and the Plus Band. So come see us out at the Oval. And County Exec, if you ever get any spare time, I hope he'll be out there with us as well. So I want to say before I step off of County Exec Fitzgerald, in the very first month he took office, he came to this building, he met with our institutional CEOs, and he talked about the strategies that we have going on here and the strategies that he intended to employ at Cuyahoga County, and he made good on so many of those in his first 6 months. But he's no stranger to us. He's been here before. He'll be here again. He's here tonight. So it's my pleasure to introduce County Executive Ed Fitzgerald.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. Thank you to University Circle for hosting us. And I know this is being videotaped. You can't see in the videotape, but there's about 10,000 people here in the audience, so you can't see all of them. They're mostly in the back, out of camera range, but I hope you can all hear me, all 10,000 of you. There are a few people that I want to recognize, some elected officials that are here. First and foremost, Councilwoman Yvonne Conwell is here. She represents this district, and she's my colleague in county government and is one of the 11 county council members, and the university in her district includes, it's really kind of a far-flung district. It includes a lot of different parts of the city of Cleveland and surrounding areas, but it also includes this area of University Circle. So we're glad that she is here. As far as other elected officials, I think Councilman Jones, Purnell Jones, is here also. I saw him earlier. He represents an adjacent district. He's not an elected official, but Sheriff Reed, who's our county sheriff, is here, and I just want to recognize that the sheriff is here and is joining us as well. And I think, is your husband here, Councilwoman? Is Kevin Conwell? Is Kevin here? Okay. Oh, he just walked in. Kevin Conwell, who's represents the Conwell family and the City of Cleveland Council, and so he's here as well, and he's somebody we partner with on a number of issues. I'm going to give what I hope is a pretty concise review of what we've been working on for the first 6 months, and give a quick PowerPoint presentation about what we're working on, and then I will take any questions that you might have, and I'll do my best to answer them. If I can't answer them, or if it's something that you want to bring to my attention or you want to bring to my staff's attention, but you don't want to share it with the other 10,000 people that are here, you can bring it up to us afterwards. Especially sometimes there's something of a law enforcement nature, and we do have representatives from the sheriff's office. We also have representatives from different aspects and different parts of county government. So we have folks that are here from our information technologies sector. We have people that are here from human services. We have people that can at least take your information or your questions down. And if we can't answer it tonight, we'll try to get to the bottom of it. And if you have a specific complaint or you have a customer service type complaint, we'll get to work on it and try to work on it for you and with you. So let's do a review of what county government is and what we're working on. But let's start even before we get to that in really talking about what we have to work with in the first place. One of the problems I think the greater Cleveland area has had is that we haven't always had an appreciation for what assets we have in the first place. And if you're going to solve a set of problems, you have to first assess what are the challenges, what are the deficits that are out there, what are the negative trends that you have to deal with, And then what do you start with? What are the assets? What are the positive trends that you have going for you? And this area frequently, I think, talks about what we have going against us or what we've had that has negatively impacted the area, but sometimes we have overlooked what we have here. And it isn't to be unrealistically optimistic, but it's to have the right balance. What are we facing, and what are our assets now? Let's talk about the negative trends first, and then what I think that county government can do about it. First of all, as most of you know, we have lost, the county has lost about 113,000 individuals according to the last census. So for that 10-year period, the county lost net 113,000. Now the suburbs actually went up a little bit. In the city of Cleveland went down fairly significantly. Although there are portions of the city that did well, there are other portions that did very poorly. But overall, countywide, we lost 113,000 people. And that also means that we have 113,000 fewer taxpayers in the city. So that has a real effect on it. That has a ripple effect in a lot of different ways. The unemployment rate, these numbers are a little bit dated, but they're still pretty much accurate, is about 9.2%. But that doesn't count the underemployment rate, because the underemployment rate, you can basically double that. It's closer to 20%, and the number could be even higher than that. And it also doesn't mean that everybody is employed in a profession where they're going to get health care. I mean, it doesn't mean that they're all appropriately employed. But just having almost 60,000 unemployed individuals is a huge challenge to overcome. We're not unique. There's most parts of the country are suffering, but we've been hit hard in that way as well. The single biggest predictor of economic success is educational achievement. And the fact that we're only at about a 71.4% rate for high school graduation is just completely unacceptable. Now, we know in the city of Cleveland it's even much lower than that. Now, are there people that have succeeded without graduating from high school? Yes. I have relatives that have done very, very well that never graduate from high school. Are there people that don't have college degrees that have become millionaires? Yes. I have some relatives that have done that too. But we know that the best predictor of whether people are going to succeed is their educational level. Not that there isn't one in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000 that can succeed despite not having attained their degree, but we know that that's the best measure we have about whether or not someone is going to succeed in the future. And those numbers are dismal. They're some of the worst in the country. The foreclosure crisis has hit, again, the entire country, but we've been one of the hardest hit, again, in the entire nation, unfortunately. There's approximately 10,000 foreclosed homes. We're really closer to over 11,000 now with what's just been added this year. The corruption scandal, when you needed your county government to really be dealing with all the first problems that we listed, the corruption scandal just added to the burden that we have in this county. It cost us money, and it also took away the confidence that people should have in their county government. And we had a few people that were in elective office or in appointed office, and they just let everybody down. They were greedy, and they sold out, and they hurt a lot of people, and they affected the image of this community and also the reality of the way county services are provided. So that's an added burden that we had to deal with. Now, on top of all that, we've had a state administration since Governor Kasich took office that is, and there's really no polite way to say this or no way to beat around the bush with it. It's the most hostile administration to local government that has probably ever existed in the last century, at least in Ohio. Now, why do I say that? It's not because of partisan differences, even though the governor and I are not in the same political party. It's because we have never taken such a hit as we have just in these first 6 months from state funding. The county is going to lose approximately $30 million in revenue from the state. That's $30 million that we wanted to use for early childhood education, for social programs, for job creation, for law enforcement, and we could have put it to good use. And we're not asking, I want to spend a moment on this. We weren't asking the state to bail out Cuyahoga County. We had, and we still do, have a balanced budget. So we weren't asking them for a bailout. They bailed themselves out with our revenues. It's a reverse, what I call a reverse bailout. So they took money from municipalities that had balanced budgets, and they passed the pain on to us. So what we have spent a lot of time doing in these first 6 or 7 months is digging out of a hole, not a hole of our own creation, but a hole that the state dug and then pushed us into. So now we've got to figure out a way to get out of it. So if you see on the news today, or you might have already seen it, or you might read it in the paper tomorrow, we had to lay off another round of people today in Cuyahoga County that were some of my employees. So there's another 20 employees who lost their jobs today. We are about 250 employees less as I stand here today than we were at the beginning of the year. Now, some of those reductions would have been made anyway because we're trying to be more efficient. But we're not able to use those efficiencies to make the county stronger. A lot of that money that we're saving, we are trying to make up for the lost state money. So that's been very difficult. The other thing that the state has done that everybody should be aware of is not only have they cut really our own money that we were entitled to, but they're also cutting taxes, but they're cutting taxes that are mostly used by local governments. So they didn't cut state income taxes in this budget. They kept state income taxes the same, but they eliminated the estate tax, even though the estate tax really isn't paid to the state. It's paid mostly to municipalities and partly for county services. So they kept a promise to cut taxes, but we're the ones that have to make up for the tax cuts that they did, even though studies show that most of the beneficiaries of those tax cuts would be people that would make 6 figures. So they're really hitting us from all kinds of different angles there, and we're really having to spend a lot of our time trying to figure out how to make up for this change in state policy. But let's talk about all the things that we have going positive for us in this area, because we don't talk about this enough. You know it well if you live in this area, but we have some of the best medical institutions, not just in the Midwest or the country, but in the entire world. The clinic, UH, the metro system, and it's not just a great place to be treated if you happen to be sick, but it's also one of our major employment centers. And one reason why the economic downturn hasn't hit us as bad as it could have. We have still, although we've lost some Fortune 500 companies, we still have a lot of young and growing businesses. We have some of the greatest higher educational institutions, again, in the country, from Case to Cleveland State to Baldwin-Wallace. We have one of the best community colleges in Tri-C, again, in the entire nation. We have a unique geographic position in that we're located on a freshwater lake. We have a wonderful park system, rivers. We're situated really in the right place to grow. We have one of the best associations or conglomerations of nonprofits. That's everything from our cultural institutions like the Natural History Museum to the Museum of Art to the Cleveland Orchestra to all of the nonprofits that we have. We have some of the best, such as the Cleveland Foundation, some of the best nonprofit foundations that exist anywhere in the world. And really that whole idea of the nonprofit foundation started in Cleveland, Ohio. Not everybody knows that, but it started here, and they're tremendous assets to have. And we also just have talented people, and we have great people, and we have a diversity of people from all different backgrounds, all different races, all different ethnicities, and an international component to that. And that's an advantage to us, we believe, as we go forward. Now, our goal really needs to be, if you took county government, which under this kind of balance sheet of what we have going for us and what are our challenges, county government is on one side, on the negative side of the trends because of the scandals. And what our job is, between Councilwoman Conwell and the rest of us that work in county government, is when people add up the assets of this county, we want to make sure that we're bringing that over to the positive side instead of something that's dragging us down. Let me just talk quickly as I can about what does county government do? How big is it? Where does the money come from? What do we spend the money on? The total revenue for 2011 is about $1.2 billion. Now, where does that come from? Some of it comes from what it says here is intergovernmental. That means those are state funds, those are federal funds, and they're for everything from community development funds to social services. The biggest chunk of them that we get from the state or the federal government is actually for social programs. We have sales tax that we end up collecting. That's about 16%. We have investment earnings, that's all the cash that we have in the bank. That's about 1%. Charges for services, that's any time the county does a service and charges for it. And then property taxes, which is the second largest category of income, which is about 26%. The problem is with most of these categories is they've almost all been going down. So we get fewer dollars from the state, as I mentioned. We also get fewer dollars from the federal government because of their budgetary problems as well. We've also, in recent years, received less money from property taxes because of the foreclosure problems and property values going down. Sales taxes were going down consistently until about the last 8 months. In the last 8 months, sales taxes have finally started to go up, which is probably a sign that the economy is starting to make up some ground. Now, what do we spend it on? The largest single category is in human services. It's about $500 million, and it's about 40% of our budget. The other big categories are in public safety, and most of that has to do with the jail operations and running the jail and everything that's included in that, including courtroom security at the Justice Center and all of those things. But it's a huge juvenile court. It's all included in those expenditures that we run. General government, that's all of our general services that we have in the county building, from the auditor's office to the treasurer's office, the recorder's office, all of those things that you would generally expect in the area of general services that the county provides. We only spend about 1%, as you can see, it's about 1% of our general fund. It's $13.4 million, about 1% on development, and those are the funds that are spent in economic development. I'm going to talk about that in a second because that number is going to change. I'm not going to go through this whole list. It's too long. There's 20 things here listed. I'm not going to go through them. But not everybody knows what the county does. And I would encourage you to go to our website, which is onecuyahoga.com, and check it out and see what we do, because there's a lot of things that you may know about, like the Sheriff's Office or the Department of Children and Family Services, but there's other things that people don't know that we do. Fixing bridges, building roads, the animal shelter, property tax collection, everything that the medical examiner's office does. There's a lot of services that are out there. We have approximately 8,000 employees that work for the county in one way or the other. Now, what happened in the last couple years to change this whole system? Well, we went from a traditional system where you had 3 county commissioners, and then you had an elected auditor, elected treasurer, elected recorder, elected prosecutor, elected sheriff, and elected coroner. And we've changed that. Actually, there's another thing that we should have on here, because we also had an elected clerk of courts. And we've gone now to a new system where you have an elected county executive, which is me. We have 11 county council members, and we still have an elected prosecutor. So it's much more similar to what you would see in a city. So it's much more similar to a mayor and council form of government, where you have an elected mayor and then you have a council. And the idea behind this was that, and this was adopted by the voters in 2009, and then the elections took place in 2010. The idea was that we would be more coordinated, we could be more efficient, and we wouldn't be chopped up into so many different departments, and we could really start driving county government towards really getting things done, not just providing services of tax collection or whatever the individual services might be, but that we would actually be a big player when it came to things like education or economic development or law enforcement, that all these things we could be more of a force in the community as opposed to just providing one narrow service. So what have we set now as we took office on January 1st? What did we set as the priorities of this new county government? Well, the first step really was just trying to restore trust. Because when you take over for a system where there have been now some 30 or 40 people that have been convicted and are on their way to jail, with just a couple more yet to go to have their trials, the people no longer are going to have faith and trust in that form of government. So before you're really going to be able to embark on new plans or try to get people to believe that you should be trusted with new responsibilities, you have to show them that you're worthy of their trust in the first place. So a lot of what we do is try to show people how we're doing things differently. And I'll talk about how we're doing that in a minute. Secondly, our second big theme that we've been working on this year is just efficiency. We knew we were going to have to cut the budget for all the reasons I mentioned, but we didn't want to just have an artificial formula where we said, okay, we'll cut by 10%, and we don't care how it happens, it just has to happen. Instead, what we're doing is we're trying to go through every single department and try to figure out what's the most efficient we could possibly be. What's the fewest number of employees that we need to get the job done? What's the fewest number of vehicles? What's the most efficient way to have an IT service in the county? Anything we can possibly do to look at how we spend money and how can we scrutinize it. And that's what we've been working on all year, and we have saved to date millions and millions and millions of dollars. And I don't believe at this point that customer service has been affected. And we're going to use those dollars then to try to make an impact on people's lives. Let me tell you first how we're trying to restore trust. First of all, we set up the strictest ethical rules in all of Cuyahoga County. There is no county that has a stricter set of ethical guidelines than we do. But it's not just that we have ethical rules, we also enforce them. So we have ethics training for all employees. It's mandatory, and we've already trained about 4,000 so far. We also, every single employee is evaluated on the basis of merit, which might sound basic, but that was not happening before in county government. Ethics training is also mandatory for anybody that is a vendor or wants a contract with Cuyahoga County. They have to agree to abide by very strict rules and regulations. We also are the only county in Ohio now that has independent enforcement, so we have an inspector general that actually enforces those rules and can investigate those rules. I hired a federal prosecutor and brought her over to the county, and she is in charge of that, and she is an independent enforcer then of those rules. And we also try to do everything transparently. So if we're going to give a contract to somebody, you're going to be able to see it online and on the internet. If we're going to have a job that's going to be filled, the job description and the job posting is online. You don't have to know the right person to give you a heads up that the job is coming up. You'll know about it when anybody else knows about it. When we have a program or we have a policy, I come out and I try to explain it, and I try to be accessible. So we do these town hall meetings to try to explain what we're doing and answer questions the best we can. And we've done, this is our third or fourth one, but it's not the only community forum we do either. And the county council does the same thing. Their meetings are open to the public. They stream them on the internet. You can watch what they're doing. And they're having their own town hall meetings, and we're trying to have as much of a dialogue as we possibly can. Because one of the problems of the old system was it was a closed system. If you didn't know the right people, you didn't really have access to it. And we want to try to have a system where everybody has equal access to what's going on. You may not get everything you want, but you can at least have access to what's going on, because you're entitled to that as a taxpayer, and you're entitled to know what we're spending money on, because it's really the county's checkbook is your checkbook, and so we need to be accountable to you in that way. Now, how are we trying to get more efficient? Because we have this huge, all this money that we have to make up for, so how are we trying to do that? I'm going to go through this very quickly. And basically the first two just have to do with the fact that we're trying to measure what we're doing. We're trying to give every department goals to reach that are based on data and that are based on their performance. And we're trying to give every employee goals as well to say, here's what we expect you to do. If you work for the county, we expect you to work hard and be productive, and here's how we're going to try to measure your performance. We are at about, in terms of fewer employees, because so many of our expenses are based on personnel, we're about 5% smaller than we were at the beginning of the year. Now, I don't know where we're going to end up. We might end up 10% smaller. We may end up 20% smaller. I don't know, because we don't know where this analysis is going to lead us. All I can say is it's been about 7 months, and we're 5% smaller so far. And I do know for sure we're going to get smaller than that, but I don't know how small it's going to get. But it's so important to do that so that we can keep our budget balanced, but also so that we can spend that money. Instead of spending it on personnel, we can spend it on programs that create jobs, educate children. It's much more important to create private sector jobs than it is to have a large public payroll. So if I can create 10 public sector or private sector jobs, I'd much rather do that than have one public sector job. So we're trying to shrink our workforce in a as responsible way as we possibly can. We're also talking about consolidating services between municipalities, and when it talks about regionalism, that's what we're talking about. So we're looking at if there are ways to share services between cities, and the county is now playing a role in trying to make that happen so that we don't just save money, but cities can save money as well. The county has 59 different municipalities, and it's just too many. We cannot afford to have that many separate municipalities. So it's important for us to try to promote a shared strategy so that we're competing as a county against the rest of the world as opposed to trying to compete against each other for the same piece of pie. Okay. Now, the other reason we're trying to save money, besides the fact that the state has taken some of our money away, is that we want to be able to make investments in things that are going to change this county. And there's 4 big categories, and I'm going to try to go through them quickly, and then I'll take whatever questions that you might have, and I'll do my best to answer. First is early childhood. The county spends a fair amount in early childhood, but we are looking at doing more with that. Now, why is that? Well, the quick answer is this, that almost every study that's been done, when you talk about educational achievement or economic achievement, says that if you're going to spend $1, you will get the most bang for your buck if you spend that $1 on a child's life when they from birth to age 5. If you wait later, if you wait until that child is 10 years old, 12 years old, 14 years old, and then you try to change the trajectory of that child's life, good luck. You may be able to do it, but it's going to be very expensive. And it's tougher to get a train to change its tracks after it's already started moving. So study after study after study has said, if government really wants to affect whether or not a child is going to get out of poverty, because that's what it's all about, if we're really going to have a county government that helps people get out of poverty, we'll have the most success with that if we make an investment earlier in a child's life. Now, it doesn't mean the rest of the investments and the rest of the support isn't important. It is. But we believe we can do more in those early years. That's where we can have the biggest impact. And unfortunately, the state has cut assistance to that area as well. But we're trying to make that up, and we're also trying to make it up with some private sector help from some financial institutions and also the Cleveland Foundation. So our Invest in Children program has been nationally recognized, and we're going to try to expand it. We don't know how much we're going to be able to. It depends how efficient we can become. So that's why the efficiency is related to the investment. The more efficient we can be, the more we can end up investing in early childhood education. College access is something we're going to be working on with the county council because the county charter states that the council is to establish, and then there is a program that is to be administered for to promote college access and higher education. And there are programs like this in different counties all across the country, And we're currently working and meeting with Cleveland State and Tri-C and Case Western and all the different colleges in this county to say, what can we do to try to make sure that if a child in this community makes it all the way through to their high school graduation, how do we make sure that if they want to go to college, that opportunity is there for them? We want Cuyahoga County to be known as one of the most college accessible places in the United States. That's what our goal is. So if we could do those two things just in terms of education, if we could get kids started out on the right foot, and then we can help them if they can make it all the way to high school graduation, we would really, I think, be making this a different kind of county to grow up in as a child. The child poverty rate in this county is unacceptably high, and education is part of the solution to that. Law enforcement, the crime rate in this county overall is not that high, but we are a county of haves and have-nots when it comes to safety. There are suburbs in Cuyahoga County where the big crime of the week is a stolen bicycle, and there are neighborhoods in this county where the crimes of the week are counted in the number of people that are shot or killed. And so when people talk about overall crime rates, that is a deceptive number, because you have to talk about what is really going on in terms of public safety in specific neighborhoods. And we can do more, and we can do better, and the county can start being a partner with local police forces to help. Not going to be a complete solution to it, but for the first time, the county is really going to be putting sheriff's deputies out on the street, patrolling, being visible with local police officers in a big way for the first time. So working with Sheriff Reed, we're going to end up hiring just this year, it's about $1 million effort this year. We're going to have a community policing unit through the sheriff's office, and it's going to be deployed on a rotating basis all around Cuyahoga County. And it is not, thank you, it's not a replacement. It's not a replacement for local police officers, but it's a help. And we have some resources, and we should bring it to bear. Remember when I talked about before that we've got 59 different cities? We've also got 59 different police forces, and we've got 59 different law enforcement strategies, and we've got to get, when somebody decides they're going to go on a crime spree, they don't say, am I in Cleveland, or did I just cross the border into Cleveland Heights? I mean, criminal activity doesn't think that way. So it doesn't make sense for us to be divided when it comes to that. So we're looking at rolling that unit out before the end of the year. Economic development. We're going to make the biggest investment. We're going to do it, I believe we're going to get off the ground this year. We're going to make the biggest investment in small businesses and growing local businesses than has ever happened before in the history of this county. We're going to get, I should bring this guy to all my meetings. This guy, that guy's good. That guy's good. He does not work for me, by the way, as far as I know. We decided that even with all the cuts that we're looking at, that we were going to put enough money together without raising taxes. We were going to be able to put enough money together to float a bond issue for $100 million. Now, the county is and that money is going to be directed to small and local businesses, and they are going to get grants to expand, but there are going to be requirements that the jobs that they create pay a living wage, and there's going to be a requirement that they hire local folks. Now, the county has spent $100 million before on big projects. So when I say it's the biggest investment, what I mean is it's the biggest investment in small and neighborhood businesses. So you can spend $100 million or $200 million or $300 million on Brown Stadium or $450 million on the Medical Mart or a couple $100 million on Progressive Field. And I'm not saying that those are bad projects, and I'm not saying they didn't create any jobs. What I'm saying is that's putting all your money into one basket, one very expensive basket, which is in downtown Cleveland, and it is not truly, in my opinion, truly getting the county's resources out into the neighborhoods themselves. So I think this is going to have a huge effect. And we're going to start with $100 million, and I hope it gets to be even bigger. And the idea is sometimes we'll give out a loan and then the money will be coming back. So we're hoping it's going to be a revolving fund. So we give a small business $100,000. They have 10 years to repay it, let's say. They give it back to us, and then that money goes back to the county and then it goes back out to the next business. And hopefully it keeps rolling and we're really creating jobs. So we're hoping to get that going by the end of the year. I just want to tell you, just to sum up, and then if there's any questions, like I said, I'll do my best. Overall, I think we're doing pretty well. We've established very high standards. We're enforcing them. We are making the county more efficient, and that efficiency is leading to those investments that I hope are going to change the neighborhoods or help change the neighborhoods where you live. It's a work in progress because we took over a situation that was a little crazy at times, but I think we're getting there. It's going to take us a while, but I think we're getting there. So if there's any questions that anybody has, if you go to the microphones, I will do my best to answer if there's anything on your mind.
My first question is for the county. Now that you have, it's a new form of government, can it be to the point where, just like how the city of Cleveland hire ex-offenders in the county, can that be changed? And my other question is, as far as the population, what you stated about 113,000 that left, we got that many people probably walking around with convictions in the state of Ohio, I mean, rather in Cuyahoga County. And what I look at is that that population is unemployable. So if that is the case, and we got people out here with degrees that can't get jobs, and the people that's out here that got felonies and misdemeanors that can't, get jobs, this is kind of, pitting a problem in the state, and not only in the state, but in Cuyahoga County, because most of those people is coming out of Cuyahoga County. So my question is to you, and rather also to Sheriff Reed, would it be to the point where you guys create or be willing to create a system to prevent children from getting criminal records due to the fact that you have innovated some systems that you already have that both of you guys have implemented with?
Sure. Well, let me try to answer the best I can if Sheriff wants to chip in. First of all, I basically agree with your point, because there are thousands of individuals that are returned to Cuyahoga County every year, thousands, that are coming back as felons. And at one time, I think people thought that once somebody was convicted of a felony and was sent away to wherever they went, whether it was Mansfield or Lorraine Correctional Institution or wherever they went, that was it. They were going to disappear. Well, whether people want to acknowledge the fact that they are still here and still have rights, whether they want to acknowledge it or not, it happens to be the truth, and it happens to be the case. And there is an economic consequence to those individuals not being employable. Because don't be surprised if somebody reoffends if they cannot get legitimate employment. And this is something that I've seen for a number of years, and I just tell you my own personal experience. I just want to share one story with you. Last year when I was running for this office, there was a candidate forum, and this very similar question came up in the audience. And I had an obligation. I had to leave a little bit early, so after answering the question, I left and I was in the hallway, and a gentleman followed me out and said, Mr. Fitzgerald, I don't know if you remember me, but I wanted to talk to you. And I said, no, have we met? And he goes, well, we met a few years ago. You were the prosecutor that put me in jail. I said, okay, well, how's it going? I've had a few more conversations with that guy. I've gotten to know him a little bit through the years. Just because I prosecuted him in something like 1997 doesn't mean that that his story ended that day or ended the day that he got out of prison. He came back here and he had to figure out how is he going to provide for his family. And we have got to have an economic strategy that includes him, and that affects everybody. And here's something I want you to know. I don't just say that. I happen to be in the city of Cleveland right now, and I happen to be on the east side. I don't just say that when I'm here. I say it when I go to Strongsville. I say it when I go to Westlake. Because if you live in a suburb, you may think that you're not connected to the ex-offender population, but you are. Because their future is going to be bound up in your future. And the whole area is not going to succeed if we don't have a lifeline for people that come out of correctional institutions. Now, we have about $5 billion worth of investment that is going to be made in this county through all of the construction projects that are going on. It is a huge opportunity to turn this whole area around. That's between the casino development, the medical mart, the east bank of the flats, the Interbelt Bridge, the sewer projects. You add all that up, it's billions of dollars. If none of that money ends up reaching individuals who are quote-unquote unemployable, then we're not really going to grow as a community. They're going to continue to be excluded, and you're going to have a society that may be integrated legally, but it will be segregated economically. We're looking at ways to do that. We're looking at ways that we can do that legally. We're looking at ways that we can do through changing some of the laws. We are looking at diversion programs to make sure that a juvenile or a young adult isn't automatically given a felony conviction. We have looked at state regulations that sometimes restrict who we can hire or who a business can hire, and we've talked to some of our state legislators about if some of those rules can be changed. We're also looking at job training programs. Now, I'm not saying, by the way, that I want to give an added advantage to ex-offenders, because if somebody was never an offender, I don't think they should have less opportunity, but I also want to make sure that we don't have a system where those individuals are considered to be disposable. Because even if you don't believe they deserve a chance because you believe morally that's the right thing, economically, it's imperative that we do something about it. Sheriff, anything you want to add to that?
You're right on. One thing I'll add very quickly, and a program that we started last year, and I know now the county executive is also in support of, is our local incarceration program. This costs us a lot of money, and what we've decided to do is instead of sending down the first offender that's going to the state penitentiary for the first time, not first offender, but first time in the state penitentiary, we're keeping him local, or her local, so that they're now incarcerated in our jail, and we're looking at diversion programs for that already 125 inmates that ordinarily would have went to the state of Ohio penitentiary system. They're staying in the Pack County Jail, and we're getting them into diversion programs and into other programs. GED, we had the first class that took the GED in the county jail. The county executive is supporting that. It's costing us thousands of dollars to do that, but we believe that it's a good program that's going to keep young offenders out of the state penitentiary, coming back with a badge of courage, going into their neighborhoods now as a state penitentiary graduate, and getting involved in gangs and all those activities. So we're investing a lot of money in the Patrick County Jail to keep them here rather than sending them out. We are the only county in the state of Ohio that is doing that because of that.
Thank you for your question. Yeah.
Can I say just one more thing?
Sure.
Also for the county, and maybe it'll be a good idea that maybe it'll be for the sheriff to implement and the prosecutor's office to go out to different schools and educate the children what a felony can do in the long run, because many people that commit these crimes, you know what I mean, children are going to be children. And some people going to be, you know, crime is going to happen. I mean, sometimes, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend going to argue and things happen. But I think that a program need to be implemented either through Sheriff Reed's office or Bill Mason's office, where they go out to schools and educate them about what a felony can do for the long term of their life, because this will stick on their life. I mean, nobody is out here educating these children about how this stuff stay on a record for the rest of their life, and it's making them to the point where you're a slave. You're not able to work. You know, you're being called a felon. And Save-A-Lot is doing a background check on you. McDonald's is doing a background check on you. Warehouses is doing background checks on you. So I think that it need to be more education to our children coming from the law enforcement and the prosecutor's office to do that for our children. So if you can consider that out, thank you. Thank you, sir.
It's a good suggestion. Yes, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Let me say this. In our community, we have a huge need. Matter of fact, I will be in your office tomorrow at 11 a.m. meeting with your chief of staff. We need a grocery store in this community here, and we're ready to execute on the top site. We have two venues that have signed up with us. One is Save-A-Lot, and the other one is Foreman Mills, okay? Foreman Mills will bring in 60 jobs. Save-A-Lot will bring in 40. We did not go with Artie's because we know that Artie's is going to leave the city within 2 years, so we didn't go with them. I say that to say this. The city valued the property at $790,000, Mr. County Executive. The school board, I reached out to them and I said, we need you to go at $790,000 because there's people in our community, here's the threat, with obesity, there's people in our communities that have diabetes, and we're in a food desert. We're starving. We need that grocery store. Economic development is important. It's part of our paradigm. It's fitting right in the model where we're doing the Superior Avenue, which is a $12 million project. Okay, I say that to say this. The county would not budget, they would not move off the dime of $4.2 million value, that they value that building. Mr. County Executive, it's nothing in this community that is worth off of Superior $4.2 million. The $4.2 million is a threat to that project. If you guys do not move off the dime with that $4.2 million, you know what will happen with those 100 jobs? You know what will happen to my community? We might as well just tear that TOPS building down. We need you guys to work with us and work with the city to move off the dime with that $4.2 million so I can get my people in this community, your residents also, fresh foods and vegetables at the grocery store. We need you to move off the dime so we can put 100 people to work in our community with economic development so that they can take care of their families. You mentioned economic development. We need that. My residents are your residents also. And I yield to you, sir.
No, I appreciate it. Look, I hear you. I know a little bit about the situation. We will look at it. I know if you're coming over tomorrow, we'll take a look at it. I think it had partly to do with whether or not the county, because what you're talking about is appraised tax value.
The value.
And I don't know yet, and I'm willing to work with you on it, but I don't know yet that we can just set it at a number that we want to set it at.
Right.
And that's what we're looking at. But there's also other ways that we might be able to help the project.
Okay, we need to help.
Besides setting the tax value, because there have been problems before when
Yes.
the county, when a county elected official stepped in and said, this is what a property is going to be valued at.
Right.
That's part of the reason why some people got in trouble, not for the good reasons that you're talking about, but once you set that precedent of, I get to pick up the phone and say, here's what a property is going to be valued at. Well, there were some people picking up the phone and setting some values for people that were friends of theirs for not as good of reasons as what you're talking about.
Right.
But they were doing it. So we have policies and procedures that we will have to follow. But I will work with you on trying to make it happen. I can promise you that. So we'll work on it.
And let me say this. Mr. County Executive.
Yes, sir.
The only skin I have in the game for this is for my residents.
Oh, I understand what you're saying. I
You
do.
see Superior. That's stimulus money. That's from President Barack Obama. To speak to his point, we have residents from this community that's working on that project. And we're trying to connect Superior to University Circle. That's why we redid Ashbury, and we have 9 storefront renovations moving forward already to connect it, because the reason people leave this area is because of lack of opportunities and resources. That grocery store is definitely a resource. We gotta make it work. You just mentioned economic development. You just mentioned child dealing with obesity and needs and things like that. Between you and I, in this city, I talked with the mayor this morning. Also, he said, Kevin, whatever I can do to help, we gotta make it work for our people. People are dying in this community here because of lack of fresh foods and vegetables. Well, I need your help tomorrow. We got to figure it out. We got to make it work.
Look, I appreciate your advocacy on it, and we'll work with you.
Thank you for your time.
I do. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Good evening.
My name is Emily Peck, and I am a retired teacher, having taught more than 40 years, and I'm still teaching. The thing that I am concerned with, and I'm sure everybody in this room is concerned with, the plight of our children. Our children are suffering. Any way you want to look at it, they are suffering. The young children, I was happy to say that you are an advocate for early childhood. I started off as an early childhood teacher in the Cleveland Public Schools. However, you put a ton of money into the facility at Quincy and 105. That, you know, everybody knows the facility I'm talking about. It's a jail for children. It's a jail for children. We have got to do better. We need family buildings. We need family resources for the children. We have no place for our children to play. As you drove into Cleveland tonight, did you see any playground where children were playing? Did you see any place that said, "Come on in, children"? We can do better than what we're doing. We need family facilities for families to come into. The whole family can come in, not just a little junky bunker for the kids to play basketball. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a quality educational facility that will teach children how to play. They have to be taught, and they are not all bad. The things that happened up on Coventry last week and the things that are happening in Cleveland Heights, where they don't want the children on the streets after 6 o'clock, that's ludicrous. We could build a facility, we could use some of the vacated school buildings and fix them up so that children can play during the day. Learning is child's play, and the children need to learn how to play. You can't just say, "Go out in the field and play." That's ridiculous. They need supervision. They have to be taught. And we, the county, can certainly advocate for the children. Don't just say you're going to give money for education without making it specific. They need a place to play, and they need instructors to teach them how to play. And we need to have parent involvement. Parents cannot sit on the side and say, "Go over there and play with so-and-so." The parents have to be taught how to raise their children. And if the county can't do it, who else will? Like I said, you built a magnificent facility at Quincy and 105. But it reminds me of when I had a yard sale. I had an orange bird cage because my children love canaries and what have you. So in the yard sale, I put this orange bird cage, and a little boy came in with his dad, and he said, "Daddy, look, a little toy jail." Now, it was comical at the time he said it, but his father hurriedly rushed him out of the yard. Now, to me, it's not funny, it's sad. We have got to put our heads together, our minds together, and most of all, our money together, and do something for the children in this community. Thank you.
And the answer is yes. The answer is yes to your question. Let me maybe this will make some people here think. Maybe you've already thought about this. Let's say we went forward in time 1,000 years, and this society was in ruins at the time, and an archaeologist came by and they excavated the city, and they found all the public buildings that we had, and they found that one of our largest public buildings was at 105th and Quincy at Quincy for the Juvenile Justice Center, what would it say? What would it say about this community? They would say, as they try to piece back what the priorities are, they would say, what was this society about that they had to devote that much of a concentration of resources just to punish delinquent children? So it is incredible. If you look at how much money was spent, which was over $100 million on that facility. I mean, we're talking about having a $100 million economic development plan for the entire county, but over $100 million was spent just in that facility. And we're going to try to start. Now, I am not being very specific yet about how it's being spent, because right now, as you looked at the budget of the county and the graph of the county and where we spend our money, the county doesn't spend, you didn't even see education on there, did you? It wasn't even there. Do you know how many people that, in terms of actual education programs, with the exception of some of the early childhood programs, county didn't have a single person working on education policy before January 1st. Not one person working, because the county did not accept that as part of what their mission was. That was left up to the school boards, and it was left up to the city. Here's the problem, though, is that in Cuyahoga County, you have had, we've all heard about urban sprawl, right, where people move out into the suburbs. We've heard about white flight, where people move out of the city of Cleveland. It isn't so much about urban sprawl or the fact that people are trying to live in Lorain County or Medina County or Lake County, and it isn't so much about whether or not whites moved out of the city of Cleveland. It's resources, the money left. So at least in Cuyahoga County, we still have a portion of the tax base that I think still is sufficient to provide a lot more than has been provided for when it comes to education. But it is divided between all of these various suburbs. So you have suburbs that have more money than they could spend on education, but you also have neighborhoods where it's just absolutely destitute in terms of what facilities that are actually out there for children. So there's a lot of inequality there. Now, I'm not saying we're going to be able to fix that in 1 or 2 years, but we are at least putting it on our radar screen that we're going to try to get there. Yes, ma'am, your question.
Good evening, County Executive.
Good evening.
My name is Yvonne. I come to you from Ward 9 on Superior Avenue specifically, and I am happy to say that we do have stimulus money replacing the roadway, and I've waited a long time for us to start some of this building. I support my councilman, Kevin Conwell, in that we do need that grocery store at the top site. We have been without a grocery store for a number of years. Our people are suffering from many illnesses. We do need it, and I'm asking that in your consideration of the evaluation of that property and its tax value appraisal, that you use a future and best use appraisal rather than the current appraisal, and see that if you can say that a promise of this is going to be worth this amount of money, maybe possibly we could get a move on and get this going faster if you do a future and best use appraisal method rather than the current use of it. And the other thing is, I applaud Ms. Peck for her commitment to the education of the children, because that's where it begins. The third thing that I'd like to say is, you talked about population loss of 113,000 people, and it might seem very overly simplistic, but if you start to reclaim some of those people that are, for instance, people that were flooded in Berea might need some place to go if we have some housing ready for them. We can bring those votes back to the county in this area, in Glenville specifically, and increase our population here. We don't have to lose representation because people are gone. And the other that is even closer than that is that there are 165 votes out there in Kent that are going to be evicted in October on the 1st. What can we do to possibly bring some of those votes to the Cuyahoga County area?
Well, I'm not quite familiar with what the last thing you brought up with. Where are you saying the votes?
In Kent. there's a housing developer that is removing 165 seniors to anywhere they can find, and they're having a lot of stress trying to find a place to move. They're under the income level that will allow them to be able to move easily, and they're moving them out for students to have housing, which is a good thing for students to have housing. But we have 165 seniors. The highest voting category that we ever get is the senior population. They're going to be displaced and are very upset about it. If there was some way that we could entice some of those people to come into our communities, we could increase our population with solid voters.
Well, do you know who they're planning on voting for? I'd need to know that before we...
If you get them a home, maybe it would be you.
Well, that's true. That probably wouldn't hurt. You know, we do have a Department of Senior and Adult Services, and I may mention that to them to see if any of them need assistance. But thank you. Thanks for raising that. Yes, sir.
My name's Dave Ali. Pleasure meeting you, Ed.
Good to meet you.
Fitzgerald.
Thank you.
I'm glad I came over. You gave me a great feeling listening to you talk. I feel really comfortable with you being the county executive. I believe that you're going to help turn this around.
Thank you.
And I got to take my hat off for Kevin Conwell. I spent $1 million on a new facility on 117th and St. Clair 6 years ago with Kevin's help.
Yeah.
And I know how hard he works as a councilman, and I hope.
Now you're losing credibility. You started out good. Now you're.
I don't work for Ed Fitzgerald, but I feel really comfortable listening to him. I feel that it's going the right way with you and
thank you.
The help of Yvonne Conwell, and I hope you help Kevin over there in Glenville. I live in Richmond Heights, and I noticed that a lot of the residents in Glenville, they get on the Sherway and they get off on 185th and they go out to Giant Eagles at Loman's Plaza, or either Mark's,
right,
or Dave's out at Wilson Mills in Richmond. What we don't have in the inner city of Cleveland are services, all right? So what you got is residents, they say, well, we're going to the grocery store. Well, where do they go? There is no place. It's like a food desert, all right? Michelle Obama had a nice article. I'll give you a copy of it when you go to leave. You got 6.5 million children in the United States of America. And you know where these people shop at? Gas stations, corner stores. They have no apples, no oranges, no bananas. They don't have the same facilities that they have in Willoughby Hills out at Loman's Plaza.
Right.
So the residents are forced to go out there and shop. I say, if you want to retain the people in the Cuyahoga County, give them services. Give them the same thing they're going to get it, but they got to go. Oh, excuse me. They got to go outside the city of Cleveland to go get those services. So,
well, your point in the use of your use of the term food desert is right on the money, because they're using their scarce dollars to travel outside of the area, and then the money is going outside of the area, and it's not being reinvested back in the neighborhood.
Right.
And it absolutely has an impact on public health. And I've been hearing about this for years because my wife actually is a dietitian, and she runs a nutrition program for a public school system, and she sees it. And the tougher you make it for people to, it's fine to tell people, look, go for low fat and low sugar foods and healthy foods and natural foods. It's fine to tell them that, but people have to be able to spend their dollars. They have to get their biggest return on their dollar. So they're not going to be able, especially a family that's in poverty or on the edge of poverty, is not going to spend 50% more because they think the food might be healthier. They're going to have to try to feed their children with as little money as possible. So it's very important for them to have those local options.
Right.
They're also going to go a lot of times where they can happen to take a bus line or where they can walk. And they don't all have those options to drive to a healthy option.
Right.
They're going to go to the neighborhood store where they're going to get high fat, high carb, high sugar foods. We can't be surprised then when the child is dealing with childhood diabetes. I mean, it's amazing to me. It was really sad. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but when Michelle Obama ended up initiating her healthy eating campaign, it should have been embraced by everybody and all different parties, but for whatever reason, she's actually been criticized as if the government is now meddling in people's choices. Listen, it isn't a coincidence that there are more children with diabetes than ever before in the history of this country. It's happening for a reason, and it's because of what they're putting into their bodies.
Right.
So we've got to, and that's not happening by chance. It's happening because they have limited options. So we're actually going to be, and it's related to this, the county is going to be initiating a Healthy Cuyahoga County initiative this fall sometime. The city of Cleveland has already started at that. They have this Healthy Cleveland initiative. We're going to build on what some of they've done, and we're going to add to it. So we're going to be making some of these proposals, but having local food options is part of it. One more thing too is one of the things that we want to encourage, and we're going to put some money behind, is the sunny side, I guess you'd say, of some of the vacant property and some of the foreclosure issues, which is leading to vacant property, means that we have available land in the city of Cleveland. And there is going to be, and there are already urban farms in the city of Cleveland, and there can be more of those. And they're growing local produce that we have to make available then for local residents. So there's ways I think that we can partner with the city of Cleveland on that. But thank you for your compliments and thanks for the question. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, oh, over here. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Ivory. Mr. Fitzgerald, I'd want to introduce you to someone you already know. Stand up, Mr. Ivory.
Why is this happening, Bob?
I have to introduce him. Stand up.
Yes.
He
yes, Bob?
came over to remind me that we went to school together. I was his teacher.
Oh, I thought you were
preschool.
classmates. Okay, you
No,
were his teacher. Okay.
I was
all right.
his
yes.
teacher
Yes.
at Doane Elementary School.
Yes.
Doane is on East 105, just down the street, and he was one of my star pupils.
Really?
He had to be to remember. Now, Kevin, did you hear his name? I have his card. We have an ally to get done in Glenville what you're trying to do. We have an ally, Mr. Ivory. Everybody give him a big round of applause.
Thank you. Bob, you're fired. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Fitzgerald.
Good evening.
I wish I would have had a copy of your proposal, whatever. But just to piggyback on what that gentleman was saying, because I see it, I live in the community. I'm out in the community. I love the children. When the gentleman was saying we have to educate our kids and our children, and I believe that's where it starts. Like you said, with the early childhood development, you said to grasp them up until they're 5, but we can't drop the ball there. You know, we have to continue it from there, because naturally between, up to 5, we can maintain the kids, but as they get older, we have to continue there and teach them as well as college access. And I understand you want to invest money into the law enforcement agency, with your plan to make it stronger as well, but as we educate these kids, that'll be a place where your investment might shrink, because the kids will know and they will understand the right choices they make, so it won't be a long time effect on them, when they get older. Because I have a nephew, which a lot of us do, that it affects our family. Now the young man is really, really trying right now, and yes, it is hard for him, and it's hard, to keep his mind focused when, a person tries and it's like, what am I to do? I am a person also as well that's been affected by the foreclosures and things of that nature. I worked in a manufacturing area, so we know how the manufacturing basically hit us hard up here in North. So me trying to find a good paying job, not just a job, a good paying job, so I can continue to be a successful taxpayer to contribute to my society. So we do have to look at those areas. So in the midst of you restructuring your plan, which I think is good, especially that $100,000 investment into the small businesses, make them also believe and give back. So we just need to not stop, like I said, the education part to our youth, because they are our future. So.
Well, I appreciate your points, and you're also correct that all these things are connected. So we would be out of balance if I said we're going to take all the money we saved and we're going to put it all into law enforcement. You can't, I was in law enforcement of one kind or another because I was an FBI agent and then I was a prosecutor. You can't incarcerate all your problems. On the other hand, there are some people that need to be incarcerated.
That's true.
There are people that are predators, and they've always been here, and they will always be here. And we have to be ready to respond to them very quickly.
Yeah.
So you have to have a balance. You have to have a balanced approach.
Right.
I can't tell a neighborhood that's suffering through shootings and gang activities, well, we're educating children, and they're eventually going to realize this isn't a good thing. You also have to have the law enforcement side of it. So it has to be balanced. But
Right. Not saying that you don't make that investment there. I'm saying that because yes, I understand.
Right. I understand your point. Ideally, as your education level goes up and your economy goes up, your need for law enforcement hopefully will go down. Look, I mean, the United States has one of the highest incarceration rates, not just in the world, but in the history of the world. And that is related to the fact that we have economic inequality here that is almost second to none. This is one of my favorite statistics, but it's one of the most depressing statistics. The richest 400 people in the United States have more money than the bottom 150 million people in the United States. So when you have that much disparity between economic outcomes, don't be surprised when you have a high crime rate. If we had an economy that was really hitting on all cylinders, and you didn't have a 20% to 30% underemployment rate, you wouldn't have the crime rate that you have. So all of these things are related. You have to have a strategy that's balanced. But I hear you, and I appreciate your
Okay, and I'm
yes,
going to
ma'am.
say this as a story because we used to, in the Cuyahoga County, had a program called Scare Straight. I believe that's the name of it. And not that my son was a bad young man. I just sent him just so he'll see. He's a college graduate. He has his bachelor's degree in science. He gave back. He worked for the school system, and he used that story. And we sit around and laugh. He said, "Why did you send me to that program?" Like it really scared him straight, not to do nothing wrong. But I just did it just because. I mean, he was a good kid, and I, teach him because it takes a village. It truly does to raise a child. And he said it really did something to him, to where he walks, the straight line. So our kids need to see that in our community. On our suburbs, they're falling out to that. Like the lady was saying on Coventry, it's a sad situation that those children are doing that, but they need to be educated. It can't stop there. So,
thank you for
okay, great.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. My name is Desi Watson, and I am a resident of Ward 9. And I'm here because I do want to stand behind, and there are quite a few of us here from Ward 9, and we're standing behind our councilman because we have, and I'm not going to go and repeat everything that has already been said about how bad we need the store in Ward 9. I will say that Ward 9 is one of the poorest wards in the city of Cleveland. Okay? Now, I'm going to say some things that some of you probably won't appreciate it, but it's the truth. One of the things that we have and have had for a long time, we have and this has a lot to do with what's going on now in Washington with this debt ceiling. We have a huge gap when it comes to racism, when it comes to wealth. I got some notes here, and I just jotted them down, and I hope I'm going to put them in the correct order. But as far as in wealth in the household, and that's speaking of the white and black and Latino, and the white household, their percentage is only down by 16%. The black household, 63%. In other words, and also, oh no, let's not forget the Latino, theirs are down by 66%. So in other words, the wealth of the Latino, that comes to roughly $6,325, and for blacks, $5,677, and for whites, it comes to 113. Well, let me see, make sure I got this right.
It's $113,000.
$113,149. Now that's the gap. You don't have to. If you don't believe me, go and check your survey. Okay, check your survey. Now I say, now we are looking at race here. We're gonna speak on it. People don't want to deal with it, but it's here. And if you ever want to see it barefaced, this is what we are seeing every day with this debt ceiling. You have 4 presidents that proposed that the same proposal that this president is asking for. You had the Bushes, you had Reagan, and you had Clinton, and it passed. But why? So ask yourself, here is a black president, and I don't want to, I'm not here to just say, but I mean, I'm here to tell the truth, and this is the truth, and I'm sorry. But here's a president, and as far as I'm concerned, this president has done a lot. He has done more than any president since my age that I can remember in history, within 2 years. But yet and still, when these freshmen, these Republicans came in, they said, we are going to go in and we're going to take Washington back. We are not going to compromise. We're not going to do anything he wants us to do. Think about that. I want you to chew on that. And then what I want you to do, help us to get the grocery stores that we need, for the simple reason because we got senior citizens. All you got, like they said, are corner stores, and they go to those corner stores. How do I know? Because I work the community. I'm a precinct and I'm a zone rep. I work the community. I ride the community. I'm not the only one. And you can go to Dave's and pay $1 for a product at Dave and go right back to Ward 9 or any place else in the inner city, and that same product will be $2.50 or $3. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks.
I thank you all. Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
I'm gonna, I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
And I hope, I remember I came to one of your meetings. I meant to tell you this, because I came to several. But there was one of your meetings that I came to, and you even brought up the subject that you were surprised when you started running for the position at the time.
Yes.
That the city, that we were so diversified. That we were so diversified, but yet and still we were so far apart.
Well, I'll tell you about that, and I appreciate what you're saying. Let me, and I want to get to a couple other questions, but let me tell you what I did.
I'll go back to my seat now. Listen.
Okay. But you need to just say what's on your mind. You weren't really, you're beating around the bush. I need to know what you really feel. No, look, I'll tell you what I used to always tell people when I was running for the office, which is, yeah, I didn't grow up in Cleveland. My dad was from Cleveland. My dad was in the Air Force, and I grew up in Indianapolis. I spent most of my childhood in Indianapolis. But I used to come here. I used to vacation in Cleveland, believe it or not. So I knew Cleveland. I knew it as a child, but I didn't live here until I was about 20 years old. I've always thought that it was unusual when I got here. I live on the west side, okay? I always thought that it was unusual that people here were so divided between east side and west side of town. I never thought it made any sense. I still don't. And I never thought it made any sense that I happen to have grown up in an racially integrated neighborhood in Indianapolis. I never understood how this community got so divided by race either. And not that it's specific to Cleveland, it's all over the country, but it's a problem, and we have to deal with it and talk about it openly. And what I can do is I try to spend, certainly during the campaign, and Kevin can tell you that, I spent probably more time than I actually got votes in predominantly African American communities because I felt that I should, and I felt that it made sense. So it's just, and I do want to tell you about everybody that wants to talk about the grocery store. Councilman Conwell has been very forceful on this issue, and he, more than any other Cleveland council person, he is always pushing his neighborhood's issues in a positive way, but he's always doing it. So on the 4th floor, that's right, he deserves credit for it. So I'll come out of my office someday, and you got to go through like 4 doors to get to my office. I'll come out of the office, and Kevin's just standing there. I was like, how does he get there? I don't even know how he gets in front of my office, but he just does because he's determined. So I tease him about it. I was just like, how does security keep letting him in? But he and I are friends. He believes passionately for his neighborhood, and I respect him for that. And so I hear you. I hear what he said about it. And I never tell him that I can do everything that he asks me to do, but the issues get a hearing, and I'm going to work on it. Yes, sir.
Yes. Hello, Mr. Fitzgerald. My name is Leon Stevenson, and I'm also a product of Ward 9. I'm here to speak with you about a few things. Basically, I heard you speak on young people, and that's my passion. I like to work with the young guys. But as I work with them, and they ask me questions like, well, what are we going to do with when our hospitals are closing and my mother needs help, emergency? What are we going to do when they're talking about closing our post offices? What are we going to do when they're closing our rec centers? I mean, you try to work with young guys, you try to encourage them, but when they see their city, their community closing up around them, and they don't have places to go, they don't have mentors, they don't have a lot of things, how can you keep pushing them forward when everything around them basically now is closing on them? That's all.
Well, that's a tough question for me to answer. I mean, sometimes I don't like sometimes when elected officials pretend that they have answers for things that they don't. If somebody lived near Huron Hospital and it's shutting down, and they're depressed by that fact and upset by that fact, and that was where they got their health care, I can't give them some answer that's going to make them go away happy because they have a legitimate reason to be upset about that. All I can do is, just like when I started my presentation, there are things that haven't gone the right way in this community, but there are also things that are going the right way. I mean, there is better health care. There are better health care options now than there were 20 years ago. I mean, my son was just treated for a very serious illness at Rainbow, and his survival is much better now than it would have been 20 years ago. But that doesn't mean that everybody has the same access to care that he did.
True.
So we have some better assets, but just whether it's a grocery store or whether it's health care or whether it's a job, we have to make sure there aren't food deserts, we have to make sure there aren't economic deserts, we have to make sure that there aren't health care deserts. And I'm still new in the job, but as I've been talking, just to deal with health care for a moment, as I've been talking to the leadership at University Hospital and Cleveland Clinic and Metro, I have said the same thing to all of them. It's great if University Hospital builds one of the, a multi-million-dollar new cancer facility that's one of the most modern in the country. It's great if the Cleveland Clinic is opening up different buildings in different places, and not just in Ohio, but all over the country and all over the world. It's great if Metro is talking about opening up additional facilities across the county, but they all have a mission to people that remain in the city of Cleveland. And they have to figure out a way. They have a moral responsibility, and and they tell me they are going to keep it, but they have a moral responsibility to continue to care and give options to all those people. So we don't just have great options, but it's actually the people going in the door are people from all over the community. And we just have to, we have to be vigilant. All those, you have to be vigilant, keep the pressure on them. I have to be, other people who work in county government, city government, we just have to hold their feet to the fire to make sure that we don't have pockets of people that are considered forgotten or disposable. That's the best I can tell you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we're going to take two more, and then we're gonna call it a night. Yes, sir.
Mr. Fitzgerald, my name is Ron Brady. I'm a resident of Old Brooklyn off of Spring Road and I-176. And I just came here tonight to make you aware of possible pending environmental disaster in our neighborhood.
Okay.
There's 3 construction companies that want to come into our neighborhood and mine out 500,000 cubic yards of soils, salts, and alluvial silts from our neighborhood and replace it with a C&D landfill, over 5 million tons of toxic waste into our community, which is more waste than came down with the Twin Towers. And that is bad enough for our health and the people in the Old Brooklyn area as itself to be bad enough. But 1,200 feet north of this site is the remains of Harshaw Chemicals dump site in which they dumped uranium, yellow cake, uranium oxide from the Manhattan Project. And in that site, there's uranium-232, 235, 238, thorium, 232, 230, 228, radium-226, radium-228, and lead-10, 210. These are all toxic materials that are only covered by 2 feet of dirt. I've always wondered why trees didn't grow there. The Army Corps of Engineers only found this out in 2009.
Okay.
If they dig down over 8.5 acres and remove 500,000 cubic yards of dirt, they're going to enter the Cuyahoga Valley Aquifer. The radioactive material is buried in the aquifer right on top of the shale bedrock. If they do this, they will open up that area and make a land sink for groundwater. That means that the conductivity of the alluvial clay in the area moves at 0.16 feet per day. Will that drive all the radionuclear material underneath our homes? And then when they turn around and dump 5 million tons of debris on top of it, does it run the risk of having those radionuclides go out into the Cuyahoga River, which is only in some places 50 feet from the site where this radioactive material is?
Well, sir, let me interrupt you for a little bit. I'm not familiar with the situation. If you would do this for me, before you leave, if you would leave
I would be happy to.
any of your materials that you have, your name and your contact information, and I'll have somebody from the county engineer's office talk to you tomorrow. So
That
we
would
can
be
start looking
super.
at it.
And
Okay?
if you could get
You got
on
it.
the phone, I'm looking for a politician that has some common sense. Maybe you could get on the phone with Frank and John in the morning on a 3-way and say, hey guys, this is not a good idea to be digging a 500,000 cubic yard hole 1,200 feet away from a nuclear dump. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And really, I don't want to live next to it, and my neighbors don't
I hear
either.
you. I'll take a look at it.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. All right. You're the
Mr.
last
Fitzgerald, yes.
person standing. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to express appreciation for your bringing a town hall meeting, you and your staff, to our neighborhood and giving us a chance to hear you, and you're hearing us as well.
Sure.
I would just like to make 3 brief comments. I volunteer 6 days a week at a food bank in Garden Valley. We were open an hour and a half a day, and we served over 85 families, many with 9 and 10 and 12 children in their household. And I know that the county has made a major commitment to the Cleveland Food Bank in terms of providing funding for families who are in need. And there is such a great need in the Cleveland and area, even in Cuyahoga County, as far as hunger. So I want to thank you for the commitment that the county has made to feed those that need food in Cuyahoga County. Secondly, when we talk about an investment in children, especially in terms of early childhood education, I would ask that you would also invest in parenting classes. I know at one time the county did provide parenting classes for families, and I think that's so important, and why it takes a village to raise a child. It begins in the home. And I think that we need to provide the kind of assistance and support that many of our young families need to be able to raise their children the way they should be raised, so that they can become productive citizens in our community. And thirdly, I was very glad to hear you talk about the amount of money that is being put in construction and new buildings in the Cleveland area. It wasn't very long ago, in the middle of this huge economic decline in our country, that Cleveland ranked #6 in terms of new construction. But it's also very discouraging when we look around in our neighborhoods and we don't see the kind of diversity that need to be on our construction sites. When we talk about reentry programs, when we talk about jobs for people in low-income areas, construction is one of the areas where they can work. We really need to make a concerted effort to make sure that these construction jobs have some diversity there. It's very, very discouraging, even in University Circle, when you look around at the amount of construction and only see 1 or 2 African Americans on those jobs. Once the trades were taken out of the schools, it made it very, very difficult for people who had no interest in going to college, or who may not have been able to successfully maneuver college, but needed a trade. And construction is one of those trades that they can learn and use in our community. We need to make sure that training programs are provided, and reentry would be a wonderful way to do that. And so I ask you to look at that as you look at your budget, and especially in terms of your investment strategies for the county.
Well, I appreciate everything you said on the hunger issue and what the county does. Sir, I'll talk to you afterwards, but we're down. That she was the last official questioner, but
I'd like to make a comment.
Well, you'll wait till you're done.
So everybody
No.
Okay.
This is.
Okay.
I'd be happy to talk to you, but I said it's the last one, and that's the last one. Okay. The county provides about $1 million a year to local food banks, and we actually have tried to encourage some of the food bank organizations to cooperate together. Because they all have their strengths. Cleveland Food Bank has its strengths. The Hunger Network also has its strength. We encourage them to sign a memorandum of understanding to work together, and that was interesting. It took a while, but they eventually signed it, and I guess they were happy with it. But they signed it anyway, so that's the good thing. And as you probably know, the number of people who have tried to go, or who have found themselves in the position of using food banks has increased over the last 5-6 years by about 50%. And if any of you haven't been to a food bank before, you should go, even if you don't volunteer as often as this young lady does. You should go, because it may explode some myths that you might be holding about who uses a food bank. There are people coming into food banks that they may look like they're a middle-class family, but they are just keeping the appearance of that up, and they're hurting. And so even though we were in tough economic times, we had to make a decision very early on whether we would continue, even with all the state cuts, to provide the same level of service to our food banks, that we decided that we would. But thank you for the volunteering that you do there. Quickly, I agree with you about parenting classes, because, and we have tried to incorporate some of those principles into what we're seeking to do with early childhood education. So I wouldn't say we've closed the door on that. In terms of this issue about the diversity of the workforce when it comes to the major construction programs, we've had a lot of dialogue about that, including with both council people, Conwell, about this issue. We have got to make sure that these billions of dollars that's spent in payroll, that money ends up coming back into the neighborhoods where it is most needed in the city of Cleveland. We don't want, especially when you're spending taxpayer money, we don't want that staying on the top and never permeating down to where it needs to be. Now, we do have, because it is a public project, we don't have the options that sometimes a private project does, because we have more restrictions on how we can spend our money. The latest estimates that we have show that about 19% of the workforce on the Medical Mart project is classified as minority. But that is not good enough. And we can do better, and I think we will do better. So those are conversations we're having with the city of Cleveland. Let me tell you real quickly, what I think one of the biggest challenges is going to be in that area. You are exactly right that I think vocational education was defunded. You know, vocational education had, in most public high schools, had a 95% plus job placement rate. It was defunded because everybody said, well, you know, we don't want to put money into that, we're going to put money into college. Well, what would you rather have? Would you rather be a trained electrician or a trained plumber that has about, where you can easily make a very decent living and have almost guaranteed employment, or do you want to have a semester and a half at Tri-C? I mean, what do you think is really a better career path? Now, for people that want to go to college, we want to make it accessible to them. But there's also a significant portion that a college degree doesn't really make sense for them, or they don't have an interest in it. And there is real honor and value in somebody being a skilled laborer. That's how this building that we're all in right now was built. So as we're designing this college access program, we are going to talk about entry into the skilled professions as well. Here's what the problem is going to be, though, because if you look at some of the labor unions that get most of those jobs, there are real barriers there, and there have been real barriers there. And we got to start having the guts to sit down with some of the unions and say, you're not doing as well as you could. But we also have to develop some programs, because what they always say is, well, we're all open, but we're not getting the applicants for the apprenticeships. And there is some truth to that, too. Here's what the difficult part is going to be, ma'am, is that the money is being spent now on these projects, and it's going to start accelerating. All these projects that I mentioned, the money is going to be spent quickly. And it's going to be tough for us to hurry up and try to get people just out of high school or people just out of penitentiary, and hurry up and try to train them in a skilled profession and hurry up and get them on a job site. It just may not, there may be a little bit of disconnect. Here's where we missed a little bit of the boat. And I'm not saying I'm giving up on it, because we're gonna try. But we really should have said 3-4 years ago, hey, we know that this spending is coming, and we've got to get our job training programs ramped up for when the demand increases. But unfortunately, that ship sailed a little bit. So I don't think our numbers are already not as good as they should be. And unfortunately, they probably never will be as good in this round of spending. But at least we can try to create the system so that you and I aren't having this conversation, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And I'll talk to you, sir. I went over time as it was. I'll be back. I do one of these once a month. You're welcome to come to them wherever they are. You can even cross the river. You can go anywhere you want in the county, like the guy did from Old Brooklyn. So you can. So we do. I think the next one we're doing is in West Park, but we try to we do them once a month. We do them all around the county. I think I'm going to take December off probably or maybe January, depending on the weather. So I'll probably take 1 month off. But we'll do them once a month. You can come wherever they are. If you have organizations or things where you want me to appear, that or somebody from my staff or something, let me know, and I'll try to be available to you. It was a privilege to come here and speak to you, but it was also my privilege to have you give up your family time and your downtime and spend it with us here, and care enough about your community that you listen to us as we're trying to take Cuyahoga County and have you listed as one of the great things that there is about living in this place that we all love and call home. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.